Yeah, pleasure to. So I had a little boy called Alfie, as you said, mother of Alfie Dingley, in 2012. And he was perfectly fine until he was about 8 months old. And then he had his first tonic-clonic seizure, which ended up him being in hospital for 4 months, having very, very severe seizures for a lot of that time. I'll sort of run over that very quickly, but within 4 months they managed to stop his seizures, and we got home, and we hoped that it was an isolated incident because all his tests were normal. It absolutely changed our lives as a couple, me and my partner Drew, to watch our child go through so much suffering. It was very, very difficult, but we hoped that it was isolated because his seizures stopped. So we were told that it might have been a viral thing that kicked it off and that we should just sort of get on with our lives. We weaned him off. Something that's very poignant to me, he was actually on, when we left Great Ormond Street Hospital to go back to our local hospital, Warwick, he was on morphine, clonidine, 7 anti-epileptics, and we had to wean him off those over a 6-week period. And that was probably one of the most harrowing experiences of my life, is watching my 8-month-old baby weaning off morphine. That is not a fun thing to watch someone go through, especially when they're a little baby. And that is the point I started to question the drugs that my child was being given. And luckily his seizures stopped. So we went home, we rehabilitated him. He lost all his skills completely. He couldn't sit, he couldn't suckle, he couldn't do anything. He was like a newborn baby again because the seizures just destroyed him and all the drugs had destroyed him. And we rehabilitated him, and then he had another cluster of severe seizures 8 months later. And that carried on till he was 4. So he was having what's called a clustering epilepsy. So he doesn't have seizures every day, but he has seizures what seemed to be in a cyclical nature. And we were saying to his neurologist, this is cyclical. He's got to have something, that's wrong with him. And they couldn't find anything wrong with him. But then when he was 5, he was diagnosed with a condition called PCDH19, which is for us a non-inherited, very rare genetic condition. He's one of 9 boys in the world with that diagnosis. It causes very severe clustering of seizures, mild to severe learning delay and behaviour problems. And there's about 25,000 girls with it because it's usually on the X chromosome. So with boys that have it, the Y chromosome takes over, but Alfie has something called mosaicism, which means that he's only got some genes that are mutated, not all, which means he has very severe symptoms. So when we found that out, that was in 2016, and we were told by our doctor there was no cure and that we had to continue to use intravenous steroids to stop his clusters. I then even more started to question whether this was the right thing for him. And we were told that, there was no cure, there's no research, and his clusters were getting worse. So by the time he turned 5, he was having seizures every week. So he was having 150 tonic-clonic seizures. And to put that into context, that is, they always started at night. So my partner and I would take it in turns to sleep with Alfie at night to make sure that we always knew if he was going to have a seizure. He would go into a seizure at sort of 2-3 in the morning, where he would wake up screaming and go into a very big tonic-clonic seizure, which is arms, legs, eyes in the back of the head, stop breathing, which when you're being woken up like that causes very severe anxiety. So it was like we both had PTSD basically, because we were waiting for this horrendous situation to happen. We would then have to phone an ambulance, we would take him into hospital. They would hold him down and get IVs into him, because the older he got, the more aware he was between seizures. So when he was a baby, he was completely knocked out by the seizures. As he got older, he would recover. So there was many times Drew and I would have to hold him down, or usually one of us, because by that time we'd had Annie, our daughter, who's now 6. So at the time when his seizure got very bad, she was only 1 or 2. And they would hold him down. He would be screaming while they put a needle into him put lots of steroids and other anti-epileptics into him. Within 3 days, these clusters would stop, and then we would be sent home. We'd have severe aggression. I've got pictures of me where he'd scratch me, punch me, kick me. My partner's 6'3" and plays rugby. Well, not anymore because he's getting old, but in the old days he played rugby for his local team. And I looked at him and I thought, my God, he's going to be 6'3" one day, and he's going to hurt me, and he's going to hurt my daughter, and I cannot have that. And when we realised that this was just getting worse, and doctors knew not what to do other than firefight, that's when, in the back of 2016, I went to my lowest ebb. I didn't want to be the mother of someone who was so chronically ill. I was in a very bad place, and so was my family, and I wanted to either give up or fight. And I'm very grateful every day that I decided to fight. And I went onto the internet and I found cannabis, and I found that William O'Shaughnessy used cannabis to treat epilepsy a long time ago. And I started to think maybe this was something that would work. And I'm really grateful every day that I took that time to research. And that's how we ended up using cannabis with Alfie, because of just me deciding that I needed to try and save him.